All right, I think I'm up and running finally. Okay, there we go. I think we're up. Okay, hi everybody, welcome to the show. Sorry about that. I had to do a massive restart, and it's just welcome. By the way, hi everybody. I'd like to say for the record, if I may, today's a great day to change all of your passwords. Now, I had to because someone got into some of my accounts apparently and was, I guess, subtly messing around behind the scenes in there, which is good because it beats someone actually, throwing a monkey wrench and destroying everything. And so luckily I discovered that early on and I was able to do that. But I would just like to say, in general, it's a good habit to have. And especially we're less than 100 days from the election, and you've got social media accounts and all the guys. It is time for all of us to update our passwords. Just saying. Yes, Cliff will be joining us in just a moment. I hope we will. Let's see if I can get him in here. I'm going to reload the page and see if that helps. Eventually, whatever. Don't know why there'd be a problem with your eye. Let's see. Okay, enable this. Turn on this. We're gonna do that. Hopefully, things will start working for our guests this morning as well. I may have to create a whole new room for our guests as well. I wouldn't rule that out. As a matter of fact, how about I just go ahead and do that, Andrea. Oh, wait, no, there he is. Oh, just in time. Look at that.
Oh, my God, were you about to get rid of me?
No. I was about to create a whole new room just for you. Wonderful.
Oh, my God, I'm special.
You are special.
This has been, it seems on both of our sides, this has been fun.
Yeah, it's, let me tell you something. I never, hold on, I'm going to hear you. Check. Yeah, I think we're all right. Yes.
Like you and not
perfect.
Me.
No.
This feels like it always happens with me.
I heard that Saudi Arabia and Russia will repeat your.
Listen, it is always better to have a technical glitch than a brain glitch. I'm just saying. And let me, for those of you that are wondering who that wonderful disembodied, sultry voice is, ladies and gentlemen, if I may, 3, 2, 7. Cliff Schechter, everybody. There he is.
3, 2, 7.
Da-da-da.
That's right. And I wasn't the voice that did the Saudi Arabia and Russia and Babu.
Wait, this wasn't you?
Our army manned the airport. It ran the ramparts. It took over the airports. It did everything it had to do.
That wasn't,
he read the word rampart somewhere, has no idea what the fuck it means.
Well, and
just
also
repeats it. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, two things, and I pointed this out before, it gives us extra ammo in pointing out just how stupid Joe Rogan is that not only does Trump say airports in that, but he says it twice. Yes. He softly fade pronounces it, and then he recommits to it after, which is amazingly stupid. And then rammed the ramparts. Look, technically, that might work, and it might sound a little more macho. It probably was in the teleprompter. The problem was he didn't know what a rampart was, and he thought it should be airport. You rammed the airports.
Maybe airport instead of rampart. That's a very
That's
good
right.
point.
He didn't know what a rampart was, but he knows what an airport is. And America's airports all suck, especially our commercial airports, which he has not set foot in as an adult.
Do you think he sings about airports in the national anthem when he sings it?
Yes, absolutely. He's like, and the rocket Southwest, Delta landing and peanuts. I probably
Spirit Airlines.
I would never ride because that's for poor people anyway.
I spit on. Right.
Yes.
Yeah, that kind of thing. Or Mary.
So, couple of things that I just want to point out to folks right away, and thank you for being patient this morning. I am doing what someone like me would do in their spare time, by the way, and I'll show you this real quick. I'm having AI draft a piece of legislation to fight AI online.
Always creative, Hal. I got to give you that. Always.
Yes,
I like it. AI, tell us about how you would fucking kill yourself.
Well, here's the thing. Well, I have literally I've been working on this concept for a while, and it's the formatting that I'm having it do. But I designed the bill itself, which will more than likely be called like the Bots Act, like the Basic Online Telecommunications Security Act. And it does is two things. One is it puts asterisks on either side of all bot accounts online, that if somebody, whatever their name is, it's got to put an asterisk on either side of it, and they have to be a color that is not available to commercially to people or privately to people, meaning that it's a bright yellow one, so that people
think that's really smart. I like that. Again, it's like if you want to be a bot, you want to have bots on there, fine, but we get to know who they are. Yeah,
yes,
good.
And then any AI voice used without without attribution, meaning like if you use it in a movie or you use it in a cartoon or if you use it in a video game or something like that, it'll have a credit that says voice is AI generated. Or an account that does it as a joke can say celebrity voices AI impersonated on their main page. You have to attribute that. If you don't have an attribution, it has to have a chorusing effect, a glisten effect on it, effectively, so that you can tell sonically.
Right.
The voice quality, I think, should sound something like I think it's Kala in The Golden Child. Remember the snake, the snake lady. Yeah, she had that kind of wavery, like chorusing effect on her voice. It didn't take away from it, but you could tell it was not human. So those two things.
We also have to have on that second one especially. Mm-hmm. There has to be a very strong regulation regime, because we all know that Russia, China, Saudi Arabia aren't going to follow any of this, and we need to be enforcing it and banning them. Yes. Which means there need to be actual regulations that make somebody, some asshole like, I don't know, Elon Musk, do his goddamn
financially
job.
Liable.
And make him liable. Exactly right. If he allows the kinds of voices that create chaos, that lead to people dying, like, no, don't get a vaccine. It's great to not do that. In Dr. Fauci's voice, which they would do. Again, we have much more sort of control of when it comes to what people say and all that sort of stuff. We have the freedoms we have, and we all that. But that is for Americans. Totalitarian regimes are a different story, and we cannot be letting them flood us with misinformation. So these regulations have to be applied stringently to the point of where they are fully kicked off of social media. If they a couple times do not follow the protocol.
Well, and again, I believe that the irony is, when Trump and his buddies are always talking about getting rid of regulations, I would argue that the more freedoms you have, the more finely written your regulations need to be. You will need more regulations because you have more room to move from other people. Again, this goes against
exactly
the Ten Commandments. Thou shalt not kill is pretty easy until you have to go to war. And then there's first-degree murder, second-degree murder, third-degree murder, first-degree, depraved indifference, manslaughter. There's a reason why we have that many laws for one person unaliving another person, because there's a lot of variance in that, and you have a lot of freedoms within that. You can say this.
So do you know what you're doing right now, Hal?
What?
Do you know what you're actually doing? You're making the affirmative argument for regulation that Democrats have mostly failed to make ever since Reagan. A classic example, like, it's funny you bring this up now, because the other night or other day, a lot of people are liking Tim Walz right now, the governor of Minnesota, got up and was speaking and was ripping back at Republicans and showing he's very good on TV, on the stump, whatever. Yeah. And he went at him with the big government thing. And Republicans for generations would say big government. Democrats would be like, oh my God, and hide under their bed. Instead of saying what he said, which is, oh, okay, so what you're saying is you guys who claim to care about children, you're saying you do what you do, which is you tried to cut the child tax credit. so children aren't able to be fed. You've tried to cut school lunches. You've tried to,
That's right.
This so-called big government you talk about, let's talk specifically about what it is you want to cut. You want people to eat food that's poisoned and their families will die. You want people to, regulations have a purpose. Big government, as they define it, has a purpose. And what we've done is we let them turn them into these abstract concepts and then attack them, as opposed to humanizing them and pointing out the real life effects. And that's what you're doing right now with this stuff, which is regulation. Proper regulation is actually what makes capitalism work, so it doesn't become monopoly. So it's not manipulated by the Elon Musks. So it's not, so we don't have the insider trading. So we don't have it's what puts everybody on a fair playing field. Same thing with regulation everywhere else. You actually literally just made the argument, right as Kamala Harris is again grabbing another concept back that we've let Republicans own, which is utterly ridiculous, which is freedom. As they've tried to take everybody's freedom away and pretend they're libertarians. And she's been grabbing that back. And that's another one. Regulations equal freedom.
Yep.
You have the freedom to eat a damn sandwich, a ham sandwich, and not worry it's going to kill you if you know that there's an FDA.
Because the bread has regulations, the cheese has regulations, the sauce has regulations, the growing and the cleaning of lettuce has regulations, the fucking meat processing has regulations. The people have to wash their fucking hands before they make the sandwich in the first fucking place. The plastic itself has been tested so that it does not seep into the food stuff while it is stored. While the wrapping that it comes in can't be newspaper from 6 weeks ago that was used to wrap fish for the sandwich that you're having. That if they use newspaper,
everything that you're saying,
all those are regulations.
It's sort of like, right. And so if you're going to say you're pro-children, which of course they're not, but if you're going to say that, then you're going to support regulations like children eating lunch at school. Wow, what a crazy concept. They're not starving, they might learn. You're going to support the regulations like there's family and medical leave. So moms can stay home with their children and take care of them. Both moms can, when they're sick, take care of themselves when they're pregnant, and dads too, for that matter, why we have paternal leave. And then also that when you're sick, you should be able to stay home because that is the way one of the ways a family takes care of each other and makes sure that everybody's healthy and that we have happy children and happy families, which is one of these things that JD Vance pays lip service to, but couldn't give two shits about, obviously, because he's not for any of these things. Universal pre-K. So kids can actually go to school earlier on and their parents can work and make the kind of money they can learn early on. And every study shows universal pre-K. If you had pre-K, you will do better in schooling. So your kids benefit and parents benefit because their kids are at school and parents are able to work. Again, all these kinds of things. These are regulations. Humanize them and point out what lying sacks of shit they are, that they want to try to claim they care about kids, they care about families, when in the end, all they do is care about their billionaire overlords who tell them we don't want any of these things. So they successfully couched it in, these ugly Frank Luncian type terms like regulations and, blah, blah, blah. It's horrible.
Here's a good
business.
Here's a good example. You have kids as a point of regulation. Adults can do whatever the fuck they want to some degree, but kids, especially with developing brains, wear a helmet when you're skating, when you're riding a bicycle, and all those kind of things, because prefrontal cortex wounds on a child metastasize as they become adults into impulse issues and violent behavior. And you lower crime 30 years from now and 20 years from now if you do that for kids. Again, if you're an adult and your brain's already formed and you've signed your organ donor card, I don't know why you have to wear a helmet. Just write unplug me and take my kidneys if they're worth a goddamn.
Well, here's what my argument would be there, which is,
I'm only joking, though. Yeah.
No, I know you are. But Ron Paul, is a lunatic. But the one amount of credit I'll give him is he's the only one of them who's intellectually honest. He goes all the way. When he was in that debate, whenever it was 2012, I think, and they were like, so you leave somebody on the side of the road if they don't have insurance? And he's like, yes, that's freedom. Now, he's fucking insane, but at least he's not a hypocrite, because all these other Republicans are like, let's not give people health care. And then do you know what happens? What happens is preventable diseases, preventable accidents, other things end them up in the emergency room. And because we're not fucking barbarians, if they don't have health insurance, we don't just say, okay, now you have to leave the emergency room. We care for them. And guess what? Just in the way you're talking about crime and preventing crime in the future, this is a way of preventing your healthcare costs from becoming the most expensive healthcare costs in the fucking world, which is what we are, and have a system that's about a third as expensive like France's, where you've got universal health care because you prevent all of this stuff.
Well,
These
and
are
also,
called
again,
regulations.
and the extrapolation of costs, right? This is the same kind of situation. So when you get an aspirin when you're in the hospital, the reason it's $250 a pill when they do it, besides the fact that it has to be stored in a hospital setting and there's people who've got to deliver it, it's got to be of a certain quality standard that's different than over-the-counter stuff, and because a nurse has to bring it to you, and that's part and parcel to the object, because you can't get up from your own goddamn bed because you're in a hospital, because of the legal liability of all that stuff, which also would add about $30 to every pill that you take in a hospital, because there's a service fee, as it were, on top of it. But one of the other reasons why it's $250 a pill, or it's actually probably closer to 80. But the reason it's more than that is because you're not paying for just the one you took. You're paying for the one that was given to somebody who didn't have insurance in the first place, or couldn't afford insurance, or didn't get it, or was,
Correct.
injured without it and had to get a pain reliever, and they had to give that to them, and they couldn't pay for it, or they ditched the bill, or moved on, or claimed, that they wrote a fake name or whatever. Anyways, that pill cost gets passed on to you, rising, by the way, your insurance costs, because when your insurance will write in the fact that a Tylenol costs $80. That will raise your insurance costs, and
we all have to share. I mean, insurance. The way insurance works is we're all sharing the cost. So if we're letting certain people not get vaccinated, being one example, which we ended up paying for God knows how many of these fucking morons who listened to Republicans and ended up in hospitals, the cost was on us, right? If we were like them, who scream about welfare and feeding kids, I would have been screaming for them to leave old rural Republicans in the streets to die, because I don't want to pay for them. I'm not a ghoul like they are, so I didn't. But that's the truth of the matter is that they always find these examples, these BS examples on the Democratic side of people we actually care about, like kids, which they claim to but don't. But on their side of things, and again, this is about regulations. I mean, one of the greatest things that I can tell you that Joe Biden did was allowing Medicare to have the right to bulk negotiate. I've got to tell you, somebody who was in Washington, that this was a generation fight. Like we were fighting this fight for ever since I got to DC 25 years ago. And
any company can do it.
Pharma owned the entire Republican Party.
Right.
Yes. Pharma, I'll just say quickly, and I'll kick it to you. Pharma owned the entire Republican Party, and just enough Democrats from states like Delaware, New Jersey, places, South Dakota, places where there are healthcare companies, or pharmaceutical companies, so that we could never get anything passed. It was the most frustrating damn thing. Guess what that is? It's both a regulation, when you regulated Medicare and said, no, you're going to bulk negotiate like every other country, so we're not paying 60% more than Canada and paying for their R&D costs. And B, it's capitalism. It's called negotiating. In capitalism, you negotiate. If you don't regulate, then you're doing crony capitalism and letting these assholes charge whatever they want. You're artificially creating no competition, so they're like what your cable company used to be before streaming, right? And they can charge whatever the hell they feel like. And that was one of the big successes. This is why seniors have seen the price of all. I mean, besides the guaranteed price of insulin, what is it, $30 or whatever, as opposed
35.
to $1,000, and ridiculous what it used to be. Well, you're also looking at, on average, I don't know the exact number, but something like 30-40% or maybe more. The average drug prices come down. Amazing what you can do when you can actually negotiate, participate in the good parts of capitalism, and set up regulations to protect humans and not dollar bills.
Yeah.
So,
well, and and haggle, as somebody in our chat room just said. I just saw that go by. You should have the right to haggle. Thanks, Bruce Baker, in the chat room.
Yeah.
And by the way, hit that like, everybody watching Hal Sparks Mornings Mega Worldwide. Sorry I started a little bit late, but I had to restart after I was on Steph's show this morning because
hit the like,
glitchy.
comment, share it. All that
You're
stuff.
so good at this, especially with youtube.com/Cliff's Edge right there. I've got your URL right up there, so subscribe to his page as well, because there's more than enough of that love to go around. It doesn't cost you anything to subscribe on all these platforms. Do it wherever you can, and if it does cost you, like Twitter, on Twitch, use Amazon Prime. It doesn't cost you a dime. If you're an Amazon Prime subscriber, you get one free subscription a month. Please use it on my channel. There you go. So that said, I would argue along the same lines as the regulation talk we're talking about is that unions have often been bashed as being socialist or communist or some sort of workers' uprising, when in reality, all unions is a board of directors for the people that do the work. So any corporation has the head of the corporation, the CEO or what have you, but they also have a board of directors, and they meet all the time to figure out how to keep costs low and keep profits high. That's their gig, and that's fine.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. You know what I mean? And some of them might go, well, we could screw some of our workers. That would be a way we could do it. And a lot of them do.
Yeah, there's corrupt heads of unions,
right.
and I'm not saying that doesn't certainly that happens.
Same thing. They're also good board members. There are good people on corporate boards that are like, we're going to guarantee a certain level of standard because that's the kind of company we want to be. But the unions themselves,
we let them define these things,
right?
Just like regulations. We let them define.
That negotiation?
Sorry,
it was that negotiation you were talking about in terms of Medicaid, Medicare should be able to negotiate for these prices because they do buy these things in bulk because these, especially age-related medicines, you can tell by the volume of people, by the demographic, by the aging boomers and that kind of stuff, how much of that you're going to use and need, and therefore you should be able to buy it in bulk like any other company could do that. In the same way that union members should know that there is a board of directors.
Should be able to negotiate in bulk, because there's strength in numbers. Anybody who knows who's ever been in any kind of negotiation, try negotiating on your own and then try negotiating when it's you and 20 others just like you who do the same exact job and they need you for that job and cannot replace you. Right. Yeah. And you obviously it changes who has the power. But what we did, again, starting in the 80s, like with so many of these other things, like we let them define the word liberal, like we let them, define regulations. Right. We let them create these ridiculous, abstract, ugly terms, and not that the terms start off ugly, but we let them to apply all sorts of, psychological sort of negativity to these terms. We do the same with unions. We let them play off of sort of stereotypes. They played off of certainly the mob getting involved in certain unions. Well, guess what? The mob got involved in a whole lot of corporations too. But we let them make unions, turn them into they're criminals and this and that, and play off of anti-Italian stereotypes and other kinds of things, as opposed to sitting there and saying, hey, you know what? Every time they attack the union, be like, hey, you like having a weekend? Do you like it that your kid isn't working 18-hour days and there's protections from your kid having to go work for them? Do you like that you don't work 18-hour days? Do you like that you're guaranteed a break every so often? Do you like that you get lunch? Do you like that you can't be beaten and whipped at work? And I can go for 1 million more of these. Well, guess what? Unions got you all this shit. Vacation days. I mean, like if it were for unions, you get none of them. But people need to make those arguments and make it about real individual cases, like what we're doing on abortion rights right now. If you just say you're taking freedom away from women, it's not going to work in the same way as you're showing a couple women who've had their lives either put into chaos or destroyed,
or their bodies decimated
by these callous assholes who could not care less. It's the same thing with unions. I mean, there are people who have lost their lives fighting for unions. There are people who have lost their livelihoods. There are people that show the effect on people when they deny people the right to defend themselves in a union, fight for fair wages, and all that has come with that. But that's, again, we're fighting back on that front now too. Some of them were further along than others. But again, when Tim Walz said all that the other day, I was like, Jesus Christ, why is it, it's taken so long? And a few Democrats have said it here and there, but they're putting you back on their heels with big government. Give me a break. The big government, they want to become a fascist government that's watching everything you peekabooing into your damn bedroom. We want your kids to have the right to eat lunch at school.
Yeah,
these are not equal.
I have to say, as a kid who got a blue ticket, which meant you got a subsidized lunch at school. And in Kentucky, they made this point of giving the kids whose parents paid for their lunch a white ticket, and anybody who's on subsidy, the child had a blue ticket, which was
to make them feel shame.
Yeah,
unbelievable.
Right, to embarrass them about having to have some sort of assistance on their have to drop that off and watch them do it. Now, granted. My mom was a nurse. My dad was in school. So, and I'm an asshole. So I don't care. But I could see how heartbreaking it was for some of the other kids who, by the way, would have that blue ticket and never get off of it. Never. They knew. I knew that their entire time in school was that, and it was probably the only meal they were going to get. Right. It's a form
of, in the end, it's a form of segregation. It's not, I'm not trying to claim it's on the same level as Jim Crow. I mean, nothing's close that I can think of, at least to that in our recent history, but you're telling one group of people that no, you shouldn't think about going for that job. You're not qualified for it. You're not smart enough. You're not good enough. You're worse than them. In fact, you're not even clean enough to drink from the same water fountain. So we need to, I mean, this is what they do. They divide, they hate, they project all of their own insecurities and their pathetic nature onto all the rest of us. They just want to be happy and have people, do crazy shit like eat and maybe get a vacation here and there and live in something
which makes
with
them
a
more
roof.
productive, healthier, makes them live longer, makes them less expensive later in life because they don't have that cost of healthcare.
Everything we said. They don't end up in the hospital. They don't commit crime. They don't, they're less likely to get pregnant. When they're teenagers. All the things that can happen are less likely when you take care of people. And you just have to have this Leviticus kind of fucking, Old Testament angry, kind of view of the world that you should just punish, harm everybody, kill everybody, whatever. That's because it makes no logical sense. Beyond the fact that it's a compassionate thing to do, every study, of course, shows you, as every study will show you, for example, that as abortion rates go up, as abortion is a freedom, a core freedom that women enjoy, so women can decide when they're going to have families, poverty goes down, child poverty goes down, like productivity in the workforce goes up, because it's about freedom, because women deserve this right no matter what the damn effects are. It's their bodies. But guess what? There's the added benefit of it's better for all of us. But that's not enough for them. They need to hate her because they really, truly actually hate themselves.
There's also an aspect of this as well. And I like the lack of control over women that you get when she doesn't have to carry your baby to term. She has the right to contraception, which is, by the way, let's be abundantly clear. Are there true believer pro-lifers out there who think that people are killing babies because the minute you're conceived, you're a human being and stuff, and they're really committed to that, and they mean it on a soul level, and they're legit about it, and they are moved by it? Absolutely. Are the majority of Republicans that way? Absolutely not. Or they wouldn't have put a multiple abortionist like Donald Trump in office, period, end of story.
Or, their Senate leader the last 20 years who started off his career as a pro-choice Republican, as he was moderate on a lot of other things, Mitch McConnell, when he used to call himself a Rockefeller Republican back in the day, and he couldn't give two shits about abortion. He couldn't. And my guess is the majority of that caucus is that way. And there's probably a couple of religious zealots in there that are, or others for whatever reason. And my answer to them is, well, you're crazy doesn't get to determine my life. Right. So, but you bring up an important point, which is, the lunatics, be they the MAGA cultists, the theocrats, just the cruelty of people on the far right who are, incel type men, whatever group we're talking about here, they could never get anywhere without all of the careerists who go along with them and like the McConnells and the others who couldn't care less, don't give a shit about these issues, but you ride them to power. You know what I mean? And the most recent one, of course, being JD Vance. The story has come out about this trans friend of JD Vance and his wife, who were like, this was a close friend of theirs. And that's why we're seeing so many of these texts now, because we're seeing these communications that he had about what he honestly felt in 2016, 17, 18, 19. And my guess is, because to do this, he's a nasty person. You can tell it. He's always been an asshole. But he was an asshole who was a moderate Republican. But the minute, I can't even fathom doing this. It's really hard for me to imagine somebody like this. But when it was like, will you throw friends overboard, family members overboard, everything you ever believed overboard, innocent people who will die from some of the things you're pushing, will you do all of that for power? And the answer right away is, yep, I'll do all of that for power. Those are the careerist ones who make it possible for the actual lunatics to control.
I gotta say, I will go one big step further than you about him being, this is how he really thought, and this is him, and now one is, we have no idea. As this dude is an opportunistic infection in terms of his ethics and his morals.
Good point. We know what he really said he thought. We don't know what he really thought.
Whether he really believed it or not, or whether he really believes what he's saying now is immaterial, because there is no anchor. There is no basis for anybody to believe anything JD Vance or whoever he is, JP Bowman, JD Bowman, or whatever his name is.
James David Vance of Appalachia, except Appalachia was like 200 miles away from where he grew up. His family was making $175,000 in today's money. Yeah, right.
He was rich in that area. Period. He grew up well-to-do.
I know the Middletown area here. It's not that far away from Cincinnati, where I live. I've been there. There are many middle-class families there, even some middle to upper middle class. That is what JD Vance's family was. Yep. He would, as Bashir pointed out, he'd spend a couple weeks with some of his family in the Kentucky, the Appalachian part of Kentucky every summer, and to him that made it so he could claim he was Appalachian. I mean, again, he is what he is. As you put it, he's a cipher. He's not
because you're from Ohio, and you'll appreciate this. I'm gonna get something, and Tara's waiting in the wings, but I want to make sure everybody, while I'm getting what I'm getting, go to youtube.com/Cliffs_edge. It's right there, and subscribe to his channel. But I'm gonna grab something off the wall, and I want to show everybody something.
This whole broadcast, because of our little issues, I haven't been able to see you. So whatever you're showing, you'll have to describe it.
I'll turn this back on.
That's okay. I don't care. Just describe it to me and let me know what.
No, I'll show you right now, because it should be on, and I think you'll appreciate it more than most. There we go. Now you can see me.
Oh, there you are. I
apologize. Yeah. So I'm going to show you.
I mean, that handsome face. How do I go so long without seeing it?
I know. This is a picture of me and my dad. Okay. See that?
Yep.
It's hard to see.
I like your dad's coat, by the way, or jacket.
Yeah.
Yep.
This is me and my dad. That is a deer antler buck knife stuck in my belt there, in my sash. That is a bear claw and eagle claw necklace around my neck. That is my dad wearing a tin beaver necklace for the Kentuckians. Because
where are you from? Just quickly in Kentucky, so I know.
Peaks Mill, Kentucky.
I know the state pretty well.
Peaks Mill. Okay. It's outside of Frankfort. It's between Owenton and Switzer.
Yep. Right. So it's outside of Frankfort. So it's in the what they would call the golden triangle of Louisville, Lexington, and
right. Yeah. So those pants and that jacket are mine. They're now because my dad, handed them off to me. But let me hang this back up. And excellent. So that was from us going to in Friendship, Indiana. They have these. There's a campground where they used to do, the French and the natives used to do rendezvous, and so we would go to rendezvous all the time in Kentucky. So I grew up living in a teepee twice a year in Friendship, Indiana. And then in parts of Kentucky where they would set those up, we would go to chili cook-offs where they had somebody fire in their, we had a friend who was a blacksmith who'd fire in their kiln these little metals that looked like the top of a chili bowl. And we would have cow chip throwing contests, so you could see how far you could throw cow shit as a frisbee and all that stuff.
Did you go to, there's something called Fancy Farm, which is a political thing it's on the western part of Kentucky, almost in Indiana. They do every summer where all the politicians go and speak, and people heckle them. It's like as old as time. They've been doing it for like 150 years.
Never, because everything we did was so weirdly off the grid in that regard. So just so people get it, because I don't even think people grasp the depth of countryness that you can be involved in, in the South. And his cartoon
I like to be
version of it is aggravating as fuck. And I still have that knife, for example. It has my name etched in it by the man who made it, a friend of my dad's who's a blacksmith. So I have a Herschel House long rifle. I've been a member of the National Muzzleloading Rifle Association since I was 8 years old. I am a lifetime member of it. My father got me that membership when I was 8 years old. To fire muskets, long rifles, Kentucky long rifles specifically. At Flint, Flint.
No, the real thing. What I like to just say quickly, point out to people, because Yeah, as you said rightly, I'm an Ohio guy, but unlike JD Vance, I like to be honest about, and I said to everybody, like, I grew up in Manhattan. I grew up, I mean, granted, I grew up in rent-controlled housing, so I grew up in a middle to upper middle class family. We probably were wealthier because we had rent control, because New York would have been tough on us. And I chose to move. I moved out here because I met my wife, and she was from Cincinnati. We met working against Mitch McConnell, and so a lot of stuff you are talking about, I get now because I chose to move out here. But again, I didn't want to be like when you said the Ohio thing. I